Gunshots cut through the darkness. 1, 2, 3. The final round echoed across the abandoned warehouse, fading into a heavy silence broken only by labored breathing. Blood pooled beneath Agent David Hayes, spreading across the concrete floor in a dark stain. Michael Reeves dropped to his knees beside his fallen partner, pressing his hands against the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers. "Stay with me, David. Help's coming." Hayes gripped Michael's wrist, his eyes suddenly clear with purpose. "They can't get it, Mike." Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "The evidence. Don't trust anyone." His breathing stuttered. "Promise me you'll protect my family." "I promise," Michael said, but Hayes was already gone, eyes fixed on the ceiling, seeing nothing. Michael reached for his partner's weapon, rising to his feet as footsteps approached. He leveled the gun at the shadows, his own blood mixing with Hayes's on his hands. The truth died that night, or so everyone thought. Bumper Part 1 setup. The alarm clock's red digits flipped to 4:30 a.m. when Michael Reeves opened his eyes. He hadn't needed an alarm in 15 years. His body woke at the same time every morning, an internal clock calibrated by discipline and haunted by memories that refused to fade. His hand instinctively reached to the empty space beside him. Diane had been gone for 12 years, but some habits never died. The cabin creaked in the pre-dawn stillness. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, a gentle percussion accompanying the rustle of pine trees surrounding his isolated home. Blue, his aging retriever, lifted his head from his bed in the corner. The dog's muzzle had gone gray years ago, his movements now stiff with arthritis, but his eyes still watched Michael with unwavering loyalty. "Just the usual, boy," Michael said, his voice rough from disuse. "Nothing to worry about." He moved through his morning routine with military precision, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, a 3-mile run through the forest trails surrounding his cabin despite the steady rain. The physical exertion helped quiet his mind, though it never silenced it completely. By 6:15 a.m., he sat at his kitchen table in his Riverwood Police Department uniform, a cup of black coffee steaming before him, staring at the old case file he'd examined countless times. The pages were worn at the edges, the photographs faded. He knew every detail by heart: the warehouse location, the ballistics report, the crime scene photos. The official report stated that Agent David Hayes died in a shootout with drug smugglers. Case closed. But Michael knew different. He'd been there. He'd made a choice that night, a choice that cost him everything. His phone rang, jarring him from his thoughts. He answered without checking the caller ID. Only a handful of people had his number. "Chief Reeves." His voice was all business. "Morning, Chief." Jack Moore, his deputy, sounded anxious. "We've got a situation out at Miller's Creek. Hiker found a body." Michael's hand tightened around his coffee mug. "I'll be there in 20. Blue watched as Michael gathered his badge, gun, and jacket. "Stay, boy. I'll be back." The dog settled back into his bed with a soft wine eyes following his master until the door closed. Rain drummed against the roof of Michael's truck as he drove into town. Riverwood had once been a thriving logging community, but those days were long gone. Boarded storefronts lined Main Street, casualties of economic decline. The few businesses still operating, Mac's Diner, the Timber, Tavern, Walker's, General Store, served the dwindling population of just under 5,000. Michael's truck rumbled past the "Welcome to Riverwood" sign, its paint peeling, the promise of a place to put down roots fading like the town itself. He turned onto the Forest Service road leading to Miller's Creek, tires splashing through puddles as the pavement gave way to gravel. 2 patrol cars were parked at the trailhead, their lights casting alternating red and blue patterns against the wet foliage. Jack Moore stood under an umbrella talking to a pale young man in hiking gear. A woman Michael didn't recognize stood nearby, examining something on the ground. Michael parked and stepped out into the rain, pulling his jacket collar up against the chill. "Chief," Jack nodded, relief evident in his expression. At 35, Jack was relatively new to law enforcement, having joined the Riverwood PD after 4 years in the Army. He was eager, competent in routine matters, but inexperienced with violent crime. In Riverwood, that hadn't been an issue until now. "What do we have?" Michael asked, approaching the small group. "Male victim, no ID yet," Jack replied, gesturing toward the trees. "About a quarter-mile in, Mr. Peterson here found him while hiking." The hiker, a man in his 20s with a patchy beard and wide eyes, nodded nervously. "I was just following the trail, man. Thought it was a mannequin at first. Then I saw the blood." Michael turned to the woman, raising an eyebrow in question. "Dr. Emily Chen," she said before he could ask. "County medical examiner. I started last week." She offered a gloved hand, which Michael shook briefly. "You're a long way from the county office, Dr. Chen. I was visiting my brother in Riverwood when the call came in. Her expression remained professional, but Michael noted the tension in her shoulders. Thought I'd save time and come directly. Michael nodded, turning back to Jack. Show me. They followed a narrow trail into the woods, the ground soft and muddy from days of rain. The crime scene came into view, a small clearing, now crowded with evidence markers and photography equipment. The body lay partially covered by a tarp. Dr. Chen moved ahead, kneeling beside the victim and carefully pulling back the covering. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The victim was male, mid-50s, with a bullet wound to the chest. But it wasn't the wound that caused Michael's reaction. It was the markings carved into the man's forehead, 3 parallel lines crossed by a 4th. Jesus, Jack whispered. Michael stared at the symbol, memories flooding back. The same markings had been found on victims in the case 15 years ago, the one that had cost Hayes' life. You recognize this? Dr. Chen asked, her keen eyes missing nothing. Possibly, Michael replied, keeping his voice neutral. I'll need to check some old files. He crouched for a closer look, noting the precision of the cuts. Time of death, based on liver temp and rigor, between midnight and 3 a.m., Dr. Chen replied. But there's something else. She carefully turned the victim's head, revealing a small object protruding from beneath the tongue. Using tweezers, she extracted a folded piece of paper sealed in plastic. Michael accepted an evidence bag and gloves from an officer, then carefully opened the plastic and unfolded the paper. The message was typed in plain black text. Welcome back to the game, Michael. His blood ran cold. He refolded the paper, sealed it in the evidence bag, and handed it to Jack. Bag everything. Every leaf, every footprint. I want the works. Chief. Jack hesitated. Should we call in the state police or the FBI? Not yet, Michael said firmly. First, we identify the victim and establish jurisdiction. This is our case until proven otherwise. Dr. Chen was watching him, her expression unreadable. I'll expedite the autopsy, she said. But whoever did this wasn't in a hurry. The cuts were made with surgical precision post-mortem, and the victim was killed elsewhere. There's not enough blood here. Michael nodded. Keep me updated. He turned to Jack. Canvass the area. Check for tire tracks on the service road trail, cameras, anything that might give us a timeline. As they walked back to the vehicles, Michael felt the weight of the case settling on his shoulders. The message had been clear. This was personal. Someone from his past had resurfaced, someone who knew about the warehouse incident. Chief, Jack called after him. The mayor's going to want a statement. With the resort development vote next week, this kind of publicity could tank the whole project. Michael's jaw tightened. Mayor Harold Barnes had staked his political future on transforming Riverwood into a vacation destination. A murder investigation would complicate that narrative. Tell Barnes I'll brief him this afternoon, he replied. But this investigation goes by the book. No shortcuts, no cover-ups. Back in his truck, Michael sat motionless, rain drumming on the roof. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a contact he hadn't called in years, Sarah. His daughter's face smiled back at him from the profile picture, though the photo was years out of date. Their last conversation had ended with her telling him not to call again. His finger hovered over the dial button. If someone was targeting him, they might target her too. But would she even listen? He put the phone away. First, he needed more information. He started the truck and headed back to town toward the station and the storage room where the old case files were kept. The Riverwood Police Station occupied the first floor of the town hall, a brick building dating back to the 1930s. Inside, the fluorescent lighting cast a harsh glow over dated furnishings and equipment. Donna Miller, the department's administrative assistant for over 20 years, looked up as Michael entered. Morning, Chief. Heard about Miller's Creek. Anything I should know? Possible homicide, Michael replied, hanging his wet jacket on the rack. I need the Hayes case files from storage. Donna's expression shifted, concern creasing her brow. That's going back a ways. Special reason. Just covering bases, he said, not meeting her eyes. Donna had been around long enough to know when he was holding back, but she also knew when not to press. I'll have Roy bring them up, she said, reaching for the phone. Michael retreated to his office, closing the door behind him. The room was Spartan, a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and a bulletin board covered with department schedules and community notices. The only personal items were a photo of Blue and a faded picture of Sarah at her high school graduation, the last event they'd attended together. He booted up his computer and searched the national database for recent releases from federal prison related to the Hayes case. Several names appeared, including Frank Miller, a mid-level distributor who'd served 15 years for drug trafficking and had been released 3 months ago. A knock at the door interrupted his research. Roy Winters, the station's janitor and unofficial archivist, entered, carrying a dusty cardboard box. Here you go, Chief. Hayes case, all 7 folders. The elderly man set the box on the desk. Funny you should ask for these. Somebody else was interested in them recently. Michael's head snapped up. Who? Roy shrugged. Don't know. Found the storage room door unlocked last week. Nothing seemed missing, but some boxes were out of place. Reported it to Jack, but he said it was probably just someone forgetting to lock up. Thanks, Roy. Let me know if you notice anything else unusual. After Roy left, Michael opened the box, spreading the contents across his desk. Immediately, he noticed discrepancies, photos, out-of-order reports refiled in the wrong folders. Someone had definitely been through these files. He focused on the autopsy reports of victims with the distinctive markings. 5 victims total, all with connections to a drug trafficking operation run by Viktor Kozlov, a Russian national who had disappeared after the warehouse shootout. The symbol had never been publicly released. It was a detail held back to weed out false confessions. His cell phone rang. The display showed Jack's number. More, he answered. Chief, we've got an ID on our victim, James Wilson, former DEA agent, retired 5 years ago. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. Wilson had been part of the joint FBI-DEA task force on the Hayes case. Any local connections? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. None that we found. He was living in Seattle. Keep digging, and Jack, this stays between us for now. After hanging up, Michael leaned back in his chair, the implications settling in. Wilson's presence in Riverwood couldn't be coincidence. Neither could the markings, the message. He returned to the files, specifically the evidence inventory from the warehouse. Most items were accounted for: weapons, drugs, money. But there was a notation about a safety deposit box key found on Kozlov's lieutenant, contents unknown. The follow-up report simply stated, no relevant evidence recovered. Michael remembered that key. Hayes had found it, showed it to him moments before the shooting started. What had happened to it afterward was a blur: the gunfight, Hayes bleeding out, the chaos that followed. The office phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. Chief Reeves, he answered. Michael, it's Harold. Mayor Barnes' voice held barely contained anxiety. I'm hearing rumors about a body at Miller's Creek. Please tell me this isn't going to be a problem for the resort vote. I can't discuss an ongoing investigation, Harold. Don't give me that. The council meeting is Monday, and the developers are already nervous about committing to Riverwood. A murder investigation will kill this deal. Then they'll have to wait, Michael replied coldly. This takes priority. Priority, Barnes scoffed. Over the economic future of this town, people here need jobs, Michael. Real jobs, not just serving coffee to tourists passing through. I'll brief you when I have something concrete, Michael said, ending the call before Barnes could respond. He turned back to the files, but his concentration was broken by another knock. Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, her clinical coat exchanged for civilian clothes. Chief Reeves, she said, may I come in? Michael gestured to the chair opposite his desk. What can I do for you, Dr. Chen? She closed the door and sat, her posture rigid. I've expedited Wilson's autopsy, but there's something you should know now. She placed a small evidence bag on the desk. This was in his stomach. Inside the bag was a small key, the type used for safety deposit boxes. He was forced to swallow it, Dr. Chen continued. There were abrasions in his esophagus, suggesting it didn't go down willingly. Michael stared at the key, his mind racing. Any trace evidence, fingerprints, being processed now, but given the stomach acid exposure, I wouldn't expect much. She paused, studying him. You recognize the markings on the victim. It wasn't a question. Possibly, he admitted, from an old case. A case involving my father? Michael's eyes snapped to hers. What? Thomas Chen, she said. He was an informant for the FBI 15 years ago, worked in Kozlov's organization undercover. He disappeared right after the warehouse incident. Understanding dawned. You're Tommy Chen's daughter. I was 27 when he vanished. The FBI told us he likely fled to avoid testifying, but he would never have abandoned us. Her composure cracked slightly. When I saw those markings today, I knew. They're the same ones in the photos my father sent my mother before he disappeared. Michael considered her carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because you were there that night, she replied, and because someone's sending a message to both of us. She pulled out her phone, showing him an email with an attachment. I received this yesterday from an anonymous account. The attachment was a photo of Wilson's body taken before it was moved to Miller's Creek with the caption, Ask Chief Reeves about the key. Why didn't you come to me with this immediately? Michael demanded. I needed to be sure, she replied. The county position gave me access to the old case files. I needed to see if there was a connection before making accusations. And now I know Wilson was DEA assigned to the same task force that my father worked with. And I know the same person who killed Wilson sent me that photo expecting me to work with you. She leaned forward. So Chief Reeves, what do you know about the key? Before Michael could answer, his phone rang again. The number was unlisted. Reeves, he answered cautiously. Hello, Michael. The voice was digitally altered, impossible to identify. Did you get my message? Michael put the call on speaker, gesturing for Dr. Chen to stay quiet. Who is this? Someone who knows what really happened that night. Someone who knows what you did. What do you want? Justice. The word hung in the air. Check your mailbox, Michael. Consider it a reminder of debts unpaid. The call ended. Michael looked at Dr. Chen, whose expression had hardened into determination. My car's outside, she said. Let's go. Michael grabbed his jacket and they hurried to the parking lot. Rain continued to fall as they drove the winding road to Michael's cabin, neither speaking during the 20-minute journey. Michael's mailbox stood at the end of his gravel driveway, a simple metal box on a wooden post. He approached it cautiously, scanning the surrounding forest for any sign of movement. Inside was a padded envelope with no return address or postage, suggesting it had been hand-delivered. Michael opened it carefully, revealing a worn leather wallet. He recognized it immediately. It had belonged to David Hayes. What is it? Dr. Chen asked, standing beside him in the rain. Michael opened the wallet. Inside was Hayes's FBI identification, now 15 years expired, and a photograph of Hayes with his wife and young son. Written across the photo in red ink were the words, "You promised to protect them." We need to go, Michael said, the urgency in his voice unmistakable. Now. Back in the truck, Michael dialed a number from memory, his knuckles white around the steering wheel as they raced down the mountain road. Federal Bureau of Investigation, how may I direct your call? This is Chief Michael Reeves, Riverwood Police Department. I need to speak with Agent Rebecca Hayes immediately. It's an emergency. After a moment of hold music, a woman's voice came on the line. This is Hayes. Rebecca, it's Mike Reeves. Where's Tyler? There was a pause. Michael, I haven't heard from you and... Rebecca, listen to me. Where is your son? He's at college in Boston. Why, what's happening? Take a security team and get him somewhere safe. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I'll explain later. Michael, you're scaring me. Good. Be scared. Be careful. I'll call when I can. He ended the call and glanced at Dr. Chen. Hayes' wife and son. If this is about revenge, they could be targets. Dr. Chen nodded, her professional detachment temporarily abandoned. My brother Robert is in town. I should warn him too. They reached the police station to find Jack Moore waiting anxiously in the parking lot. Chief, we've got another body. Michael's stomach dropped. Where? Millwright's Bridge. Fishermen found him an hour ago. Jack lowered his voice. It's Frank Miller. Someone cut his throat. Michael exchanged a glance with Dr. Chen. Same markings. Jack nodded, and another message in his mouth. He handed Michael an evidence bag containing a blood-stained note. He was just a pawn. The real players are still on the board. The implication was clear. Frank Miller, recently released from prison, had been used as bait. Perhaps the killer had anticipated Michael would investigate Miller as a potential suspect. Jack, I need you to check security cameras around my property and mailbox. Someone delivered a package today. Michael turned to Dr. Chen. Doctor, I'd like you to personally handle Miller's autopsy. Compare it with Wilson's look for any connections beyond the obvious. As they walked inside, Donna intercepted them. Chief Mayor Barnes called 3 times, and this package came for you by courier. She handed him a small box wrapped in brown paper. Michael took it cautiously. When did this arrive? About an hour ago. Standard courier service, nothing suspicious. Michael carried the package to his office, Dr. Chen following. He placed it on the desk and carefully removed the wrapping, revealing a plain wooden box. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a single brass key, similar to the one found in Wilson's stomach, but not identical. Attached was a note, second key of 3. Find them all before time runs out. It's a safety deposit box key, Dr. Chen observed. But for which bank? Michael examined the key more closely. There was a small insignia stamped into the metal FR. First Riverwood, he said, the local bank. His phone rang again, Sarah's number. His heart raced as he answered. Sarah, Dad, her voice was shaking. There's someone watching my apartment. I saw him yesterday and again today, just sitting in a car across the street. Did you call the police? Yes, but by the time they came, he was gone. Dad, I'm scared. He left an envelope on my windshield with your picture inside, crossed out. Michael closed his eyes briefly. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. I'm 3 hours away. I'll be there in 2. Don't open the door for anyone. Call me if anything changes. After hanging up, Michael turned to Dr. Chen. I need to go. My daughter's in danger. I'll come with you, she said immediately. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. Michael didn't argue. We'll take my truck, but first I need to secure these keys. They stopped at First River Wood Bank, where Michael used his authority as police chief to access the safety deposit box without the matching key. The bank manager, nervous but cooperative, led them to the vault. Box 447, Michael instructed. I need to check its contents as part of an investigation. The manager nodded, retrieving the box and placing it on a private table before leaving them alone. Inside was a single USB drive and a folded map. Michael pocketed both and they left quickly, heading for his truck. Chief Reeves, Dr. Chen said as they pulled onto the highway heading out of town. You still haven't told me what you know about that night. Michael was silent for a long moment, focused on the road ahead as rain pelted the windshield. Finally, he spoke. The official report says David Hayes died in a shootout with Kozlov's men. That's partially true. What it doesn't say is that Hayes found evidence implicating several federal officials in Kozlov's operation before the raid. He paused. Hayes showed me a key like the ones we found today, said it opened a box containing names, account numbers, enough to bring down people in high places. What happened to the key? In the chaos after Hayes was shot, it disappeared. I assumed one of Kozlov's men took it. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. The task force supervisor shut down that angle of investigation, said it was a dead end, that we should focus on Kozlov. 3 months later, the case was closed. Kozlov was presumed dead, though his body was never found. And my father? Michael's expression darkened. Tommy was deep cover in Kozlov's organization. After the warehouse, he vanished. The FBI said he likely ran with some of Kozlov's money. I never believed that. He was murdered, Dr. Chen said quietly, like the others. Probably, Michael admitted, but I could never prove it. They drove in silence for several miles, each absorbed in their thoughts. Finally, Dr. Chen spoke again. Someone's killing people connected to that case. Wilson Miller. They're trying to find something, these keys, whatever they unlock. And they're using you to do it. Using us, Michael corrected. That email you received wasn't random. They wanted you involved too. As they neared the city limits, Michael's phone rang again. The display showed Jack's number. More, he answered. Chief, we've got a problem. Jack's voice was tight with tension. Someone broke into the evidence room. The files from the Hayes case are gone along with Wilson's personal effects. When, sometime in the last hour, security cameras were disabled. Michael cursed under his breath. Lock down the station. No one in or out until I get back. There's more, Jack continued. Dr. Chen's lab was hit too. All the samples from Wilson's autopsy are missing. Michael glanced at Emily. We're heading to my daughter's place now. Call if anything else happens. After ending the call, he filled her in. Whoever's behind this is eliminating evidence and loose ends. My brother, Emily said suddenly. If they know about my connection to the case, they might target him too. She tried calling Robert, but the call went straight to voicemail. He's not answering. We'll check on him after we get Sarah, Michael promised. 2 hours later, they pulled up outside Sarah's apartment building in the city. The street was quiet, normal for a weekday afternoon. Michael scanned the parked cars, looking for anyone watching the building. I don't see anything suspicious, he said, but stay alert. They approached the building, Michael leading the way. He pressed Sarah's buzzer but received no response. He tried her cell phone, straight to voicemail. Something's wrong, he said, reaching for his service weapon. We need to get inside. The front door of the building was locked, but Michael had a key Sarah had given him years ago, a key she'd probably forgotten about. They entered quietly, taking the stairs to the 3rd floor. Outside Sarah's apartment, Michael listened at the door. Silence. He knocked. Sarah, it's Dad. Nothing. With Dr. Chen positioned to the side, Michael unlocked the door with his key and pushed it open slowly, gun ready. The apartment was empty, but showed signs of a struggle: overturned furniture, broken glass. On the wall, written in what appeared to be red paint, was a message. 48 hours to remember the truth or she dies. Michael stared at the words, a cold rage building inside him. Dr. Chen placed a hand on his arm, bringing him back to the present. We need to call it in, she said gently. Michael nodded, his expression hardening into determination. Make the call. I'll check the rest of the apartment. He moved methodically through the rooms, looking for any clue to Sarah's whereabouts or her abductor's identity. In her bedroom, he found her phone smashed on the floor, explaining why she hadn't answered. On her desk was a framed photo of Sarah with Diane taken before their divorce. Next to it lay an envelope addressed to Michael. Inside was a piece of paper with an address in Riverwood and a time midnight. "Dr. Chen," he called, returning to the living room. "We need to get back to Riverwood." She ended her call with local police. "They're sending a team. We should wait." "We don't have time," Michael interrupted, showing her the note. "Whoever took Sarah wants me in Riverwood tonight." "It's obviously a trap," she warned. "I know," Michael replied grimly. "But it's Sarah. I don't have a choice." As they left the apartment, Michael's phone rang a call from Blue's veterinarian. "Chief Reeves," the vet said, her voice concerned. "You need to come in right away. Blue collapsed during his checkup. I think he's been poisoned." Michael froze, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. The cabin, the mail, his dog, someone had been watching him, had been inside his home. "Is he going to make it?" he asked, voice tight. "I'm doing everything I can," the vet replied. "But it's touch and go." After ending the call, Michael looked at Dr. Chen, his expression grim. "They poisoned my dog." She nodded in understanding. "This is personal." "It always was," Michael replied. "Get in touch with your brother. Tell him to meet us at the station in Riverwood. We're running out of time." They drove back in tense silence, the weight of what was happening settling over them. Someone was systematically dismantling Michael's life, taking or destroying everything he cared about. And it all connected back to that night 15 years ago, a night when truth and lies had become fatally intertwined. As they crossed the Riverwood town line, rain still falling steadily, Michael made a silent promise to Sarah, to Blue, to himself. This time he wouldn't let the truth die. Whatever it cost him, he would see this through to the end. The address from the note led to an abandoned ranger station deep in the forest, accessible only by a forgotten fire road. Michael knew the place. It had been shut down years ago due to budget cuts, another casualty of Riverwood's economic decline. "We should wait for backup," Dr. Chen argued as they parked a quarter-mile away, hiding the truck among the trees. "Whoever took Sarah said 48 hours, Michael replied, checking his weapon. "But they also set a meeting for tonight. I'm not risking her life by waiting." He handed Dr. Chen a spare flashlight. "Stay behind me. If anything happens, get back to the truck and call Jack." They approached on foot, moving quietly through the dense forest despite the rain. The old ranger station came into view, a small cabin with boarded windows barely visible in the gloom. Michael signaled for Dr. Chen to wait as he circled the structure, looking for signs of activity. A faint light flickered inside, visible through cracks in the boards. No vehicles were visible, but the muddy ground showed recent footprints. He returned to Dr. Chen and whispered, "Someone's inside. Follow my lead." With his gun drawn, Michael approached the front door. It was unlocked. He pushed it open slowly, revealing a sparse interior lit by a single lantern on a table. In the center of the room was a chair, and tied to it was a man with a bag over his head. Not Sarah. Michael entered cautiously, Dr. Chen close behind. As they approached the figure, a cell phone on the table lit up, displaying an incoming call. Michael answered, putting it on speaker. "Where's my daughter?" "Hello, Michael." The same digitally altered voice from before. "Consider this a test of your commitment. Remove the hood." Michael approached the bound figure and pulled off the bag, revealing Robert Chen, Emily's brother, gagged and unconscious but alive. "Robert." Emily rushed forward, checking his pulse. "Dr. Chen," the voice acknowledged. "I see you've joined forces with the chief. How fitting." "What do you want?" Michael demanded. "The truth, Michael. The truth about what happened that night. The truth about who really killed David Hayes." "I didn't kill Hayes. He was my partner, my friend." "Yet you let his killer go free," the voice accused. "You buried evidence, accepted the official story, moved on with your life, while others paid the price." "Where is my daughter?" Michael repeated, struggling to control his anger. "Safe for now. You have until tomorrow night to remember what really happened. Bring the 3 keys to the old paper mill. Come alone. And if I go to the FBI, then you'll never see Sarah again." The call ended. Emily had removed Robert's gag and was trying to revive him. "He's been drugged," she said, examining his pupils, "but his vitals are stable." Michael cut the ropes, binding Robert to the chair. "We need to get him to a hospital." As they carried Robert to the truck, Michael's mind raced. The keys, the safety deposit boxes, the paper mill, it all connected to the warehouse incident. But how? The paper mill had been abandoned for decades, long before the Hayes case. But it was located on the same property where the warehouse stood, the site of the shootout where Hayes died. Back in town, they dropped Robert at the hospital, where Emily reluctantly stayed with him, while Michael continued to the police station. Inside, he found Jack waiting anxiously, "Chief, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours." "Family emergency," Michael replied, not stopping as he headed to his office. "Any progress on the Miller case?" "Autopsy confirmed he was killed the same way as Wilson," Jack reported following him. "And we found his car abandoned near the town line. Looks like he was heading out of town when someone intercepted him." "What about the security footage from around my property?" Jack hesitated. "That's the strange part. We checked traffic cameras near your place. There's a 4-hour gap in the recording. Someone hacked the system." Michael sat heavily in his chair. "They're always one step ahead." Chief Jack said carefully, "Maybe it's time to bring in the FBI. This is bigger than Riverwood PD." "Not yet," Michael replied. "We don't know who we can trust." He looked up at his deputy. "Jack, I need you to do something for me." No questions asked. Jack nodded slowly. "Name it." "Go to this address." Michael wrote down the location of a storage unit in the next town. "Inside, you'll find a locked case. The combination is 032497. Bring it here directly to me. Tell no one." After Jack left, Michael opened his desk drawer and removed the USB drive and map from the safety deposit box. The drive was password protected, but the map showed the area around Riverwood, with several locations marked in red, including the paper mill. One mark caught his attention. It corresponded to Diane's gravesite in the Riverwood Cemetery. His ex-wife had died in a car accident 3 years after their divorce, a tragedy that had severed the last thread connecting him to Sarah. At the funeral, his daughter had accused him of being more committed to his cases than to his family. She wasn't wrong. Michael stared at the map, a horrible suspicion forming in his mind. What if Diane's death hadn't been an accident? What if it was connected to the Hayes case somehow? The third key, the paper mill, Sarah's abduction. It was all leading to something buried 15 years ago, something worth killing for. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Agent Peterson," a gruff voice answered. "Tom, it's Mike Reeves." A pause. "Reeves, Jesus, it's been, 10 years?" "Listen carefully," Michael said. "I need everything you have on Victor Kozlov and the Hayes case. Unofficial channels only. That case is ancient history, Mike. It's active again. Someone's killing people connected to it, including James Wilson. They've taken my daughter." Another pause, longer this time. "Give me an hour." Michael hung up and leaned back in his chair, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. He hadn't slept in over 36 hours, and the weight of Sarah's abduction pressed down on him like a physical force. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chen. "Robert's awake. Says he was approached by someone claiming to be your friend, asking about my father's case files." Another piece of the puzzle: Robert had been targeted because of his connection to Emily, who was connected to Tommy Chen, who was connected to the warehouse incident. The killer was methodically eliminating everyone with knowledge of what happened that night. But why now, after 15 years? Michael's thoughts were interrupted by Jack's return. He carried a metal case which he placed on the desk. "Found it exactly where you said," Jack reported. "Chief, what's going on? First the murders, now your daughter missing. I want to help." Michael studied his deputy, weighing how much to reveal. Finally, he decided on the truth or part of it. 15 years ago, I was involved in a federal case that went bad. My partner was killed, and the investigation was shut down prematurely. Now someone's killing people connected to that case. "And Sarah?" "Taken as leverage," Michael replied, his voice tight. "I have until tomorrow night to figure out what they want." Jack's expression hardened with determination. "What can I do?" "Keep digging into Wilson and Miller. Find any connection beyond the obvious. And keep this conversation between us. I don't know who else might be involved." After Jack left, Michael opened the metal case, revealing a handgun different from his service weapon, extra ammunition, and a sealed envelope. Inside the envelope was a key identical to the one found in Wilson's stomach. The second of 3 keys, but where was the third? The map markings suggested Diane's grave, but Michael couldn't believe his ex-wife had been involved. Unless he remembered the last time he saw her alive at Sarah's high school graduation. Diane had tried to talk to him privately, said she had information about an old case, but he had brushed her off too, focused on a current investigation. 2 weeks later, she was dead, a single-car accident on a clear day. The horrible truth began to crystallize. Diane had discovered something about the Hayes case, something worth killing for. And now, 15 years later, the past had come full circle. Michael gathered the keys, the USB drive, and the map, securing them in his jacket. He needed to check Diane's grave before meeting the kidnapper at the paper mill. As he prepared to leave, his phone rang, Peterson returning his call. "Mike, I've got something," the agent said without preamble. "Kozlov isn't dead. He was spotted in Canada 3 months ago. Michael froze. You're sure? Facial recognition 98% match. We've been quietly tracking him, waiting for him to lead us to his new operation. Why wasn't I informed? Need to know basis, Peterson replied. And honestly, Mike, after what happened with Hayes, some people question your reliability. The implications stung, but Michael pushed past it. What about Hayes' family? Are they safe? Rebecca and Tyler are under protection. We moved them after your call. Good. Michael hesitated, then asked, what about the evidence Hayes found the names of officials involved with Kozlov? A long pause. That was never confirmed, Mike, just Hayes' theory. But if it was true, if Hayes had evidence against people in the Bureau, then someone would have gone to great lengths to bury it, Peterson admitted. Look, be careful with this. If Kozlov is back, and if he thinks you have something he wants, I'll handle it, Michael said, ending the call. Night had fallen by the time Michael reached the cemetery, rain still falling steadily. He parked outside the gates and continued on foot, flashlight in hand, navigating between headstones until he reached Diane's grave. The simple marker read, Diane Marie Reeves' beloved mother, with the dates of her birth and death. Michael stood before it, rain mingling with the tears he refused to acknowledge. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have listened to you. Steeling himself for what came next, Michael retrieved a folding shovel from his pack and began to dig. The ground was soft from days of rain, but the work was still grueling. He dug methodically, refusing to think about what he was doing, desecrating his ex-wife's grave based on a hunch. An hour later, his shovel struck something solid. Clearing away more dirt revealed not a coffin, but a metal box about the size of a briefcase buried several feet above where Diane's casket would be. Michael pried it open, finding a waterproof container inside. Within it was a sealed plastic bag containing a thumb drive, documents, and a key, the third key. As he examined the contents, a voice spoke from behind him. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Michael turned, hand moving to his weapon, to find a figure standing in the shadows, face obscured by a hood. Who are you? Michael demanded, rising to his feet. Someone who's been watching you for a very long time, the figure replied, stepping forward into the dim light. The hood came down, revealing a face Michael had never expected to see again, older, scarred, but unmistakable. Viktor Kozlov. You're supposed to be dead, Michael said, gun now drawn and aimed at the Russian. As far as the world is concerned, I am, Kozlov replied, seemingly unconcerned by the weapon. Just as the truth about that night was supposed to be buried forever. Where's my daughter? Safe for now. Whether she stays that way depends on you. Kozlov gestured to the box at Michael's feet. Did you find what you were looking for? The third key, Michael confirmed. But why the games? Why not just take it yourself? Because I needed you to remember, Michael, to face what you helped cover up. Kozlov's eyes hardened. Hayes wasn't killed by my men. He was executed by one of your own on orders from someone inside the Bureau who didn't want his evidence to see the light of day. The accusation hit Michael like a physical blow. That's not possible. Isn't it? Think Michael, who arrived first after the shooting, who took control of the scene, the evidence. Michael's mind raced back to that night. After Hayes was shot, chaos erupted. He'd been focused on trying to save his partner. Then the backup team arrived, led by Senior Agent Thomas Wilkins, who took over the investigation. Wilkins, Michael whispered. Kozlov nodded. He made sure the keys disappeared, that the safety deposit boxes were emptied before anyone could check them. He buried Hayes' evidence and pinned everything on me. Why should I believe you? You don't have to, Kozlov replied. The proof is in that box. Diane found it. She was going to expose everything, but they silenced her too. Michael's world tilted on its axis. If Kozlov was telling the truth, it meant the Bureau, or at least elements within it, had murdered his partner and his ex-wife to cover up corruption. Why come back now after 15 years? Because the same people are still in power, Kozlov said. Still untouchable. Until now. He gestured to the box. Those three keys open a vault in the old paper mill basement. Inside is Hayes' original evidence plus everything I collected afterward. Enough to bring down everyone involved. And Sarah, at the mill. You'll find her when you open the vault. Kozlov started to back away. Midnight tomorrow, Michael. Bring the keys. Come alone. Wait, Michael called. Why me? Why involve my family in this? Kozlov paused. Because you made a promise to Hayes to protect his family. But you failed. You let the killers walk free. His expression darkened. Now you have a chance to make it right. With that, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Michael standing beside the desecrated grave, the rain washing away the last of his certainties. He gathered the box and its contents, replacing the dirt as best he could. The truth he'd believed for 15 years was unraveling, replaced by something far more sinister. If Hayes had been killed by someone inside the FBI, if Diane had discovered this and been murdered for it, then nothing in Michael's life was what it seemed. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The judge awaits your decision." Attached was a photo of Sarah bound but apparently unharmed inside what looked like the paper mill. Behind her, painted on the wall, was a symbol, three parallel lines crossed by a fourth. The same markings found on the murder victims. The same symbol that had haunted Michael for 15 years. He returned to his truck, the box secure beside him, and headed back to town. The final confrontation awaited at the paper mill, but first he needed to understand exactly what Hayes had discovered and who had killed him to keep it secret. Part 2: Conflict and Escalation. Rain pummeled the roof of Michael's truck as he parked behind the Riverwood police station, using the rear entrance to avoid being seen. The metal box from Diane's grave sat heavy on the passenger seat, its contents potentially explosive enough to shatter the foundations of everything he'd believed for 15 years. Inside the station, the night shift consisted of a single dispatcher and one patrol officer. Michael nodded to them as he passed, heading straight for his office. Once inside, he locked the door and closed the blinds. He spread the contents of the box across his desk, the third key matching the other two, a thumb drive, and a collection of documents in a waterproof folder. The documents appeared to be financial records showing transfers between offshore accounts and several domestic banks, including First Riverwood. Michael booted up his computer and inserted the thumb drive. It contained dozens of files organized by date beginning 15 years ago. He opened the earliest, finding surveillance photos of several men meeting at a cabin outside Riverwood. One he recognized immediately as Victor Kozlov. Another, to his shock, was Thomas Wilkins, the senior FBI agent who had taken over the investigation after Hayes was shot. Further files revealed transcripts of recorded conversations detailing an arrangement between Kozlov's organization and certain government officials. Kozlov would be allowed to move product through specific channels, and in exchange he would provide intelligence on rival organizations and foreign operatives. The most damning file was dated the day before the warehouse raid. It was a video clearly recorded covertly showing Wilkins meeting with Kozlov. Their conversation made it clear the raid was supposed to be a controlled operation designed to eliminate a faction of Kozlov's organization that had become problematic while preserving Kozlov's position as an asset. But Hayes had discovered the arrangement. He'd found evidence in a safety deposit box, evidence he showed to Michael moments before the shooting started. Michael remembered that moment with painful clarity. Hayes pulling him aside, showing him the key, explaining he'd traced it to a safety deposit box containing records of payoffs to federal officials. Then gunfire erupted, and in the chaos that followed, Hayes was shot. Michael had always assumed it was Kozlov's men who killed his partner. But according to the video evidence, Wilkins had anticipated Hayes' discovery and arranged for him to be eliminated during the raid. The final file was the most personal, a video message from Diane recorded a week before her death. Her face filled the screen, her expression grave. "Michael, if you're watching this, then I'm probably dead. I've been investigating the Hayes case for months. I know what really happened that night. Hayes wasn't killed by Kozlov's men. He was executed by someone inside the bureau. I have proof documents showing the money trail. It leads back to people in positions of power, people who couldn't afford to be exposed." She paused, wiping away tears. "I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. Always too focused on the next case, never looking back." "Well, you need to look back now, Mike. They're watching me. I've hidden copies of everything in places only you would think to look. The cemetery plot I purchased, check there first. I've also left information with someone I trust to be released if anything happens to me." Her expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry it came to bone. I know you loved Hayes like a brother. And despite everything, I know you love Sarah. Be careful, Michael. These people won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens them." The video ended, leaving Michael staring at a blank screen, his world upended. Diane had discovered the truth and tried to warn him, and it had cost her her life. A soft knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Chief," Jack Moore's voice came through. "You in there?" Michael quickly gathered the materials, securing them in his desk drawer before unlocking the door. Jack stood outside, his expression concerned. "Been trying to reach you," Jack said. "Dr. Chen called. Her brother's condition has worsened. They think he was injected with something. She asked for you." Michael nodded grimly. "I'll head over there now. Any other developments?" "Mayor Barnes has been asking questions about the investigation. Seems particularly interested in the Wilson case. What did you tell him? Just the basics, Jack replied, that we're pursuing leads. Michael studied his deputy, weighing his next words carefully. Jack, I need you to do something, but it has to be between us. No record, no reports. Jack hesitated only briefly. What do you need, Chief? Background on Mayor Barnes, financial records, phone logs, any connection to a man named Thomas Wilkins or Victor Kozlov. The Russian from the old case files. Jack's eyebrows rose. You think the mayor's involved? I don't know who's involved, Michael replied honestly. That's the problem. At the hospital, Michael found Emily Chen sitting outside her brother's room. Her usual composed demeanor cracked by worry. She looked up as he approached. They're saying it's some kind of neurotoxin, she said without preamble. They've never seen anything like it. It's attacking his nervous system. Will he make it? She shook her head slightly. They don't know. They're trying everything. Her eyes narrowed. You found something. It wasn't a question. Michael sat beside her, lowering his voice. I found the third key, and evidence suggesting Hayes was killed by someone inside the FBI, not by Kozlov's men. My father. I think he witnessed it, Michael replied. The file mentions an undercover agent who disappeared after the raid. It has to be Tommy. Emily absorbed this, her clinical mind processing the implications. If what you're saying is true, then the same people who killed Hayes might have eliminated my father to tie up loose ends. And now they're cleaning up again, Michael confirmed. Wilson Miller, your brother, my daughter, they're eliminating anyone who might help expose the truth. Why now after 15 years? I'm not sure, Michael admitted, but Kozlov contacted me. He claims he has Hayes' original evidence hidden in a vault at the old paper mill. He wants me to bring the 3 keys there tomorrow night. It's obviously a trap, Emily warned. Probably, but Sarah's there too. Michael's expression hardened. I don't have a choice. Emily was silent for a moment, then asked, what was on the thumb drive from your ex-wife? Evidence of a conspiracy reaching into the highest levels of law enforcement. Financial records, surveillance, recorded conversations. Diane was investigating Hayes' death before her accident. So the same people who killed Hayes likely killed your ex-wife, Emily concluded. And now they've taken your daughter to force you to hand over the remaining evidence. Michael nodded. But there's something else at play. This judge figure, the one who sent you the email, who left messages with the bodies. I don't think it's Kozlov. His style is different. A third party, Emily mused. Someone else with a stake in this. Their conversation was interrupted by a doctor emerging from Robert's room. Dr. Chen, he said gravely, we've identified the toxin. It's a modified version of a compound developed for military applications. We've started a targeted treatment, but the next few hours will be critical. After the doctor left, Emily turned to Michael, her expression grim. Military-grade toxin. Whoever is behind this has serious resources. Or connections to people who do, Michael added. The files mention government officials involved with Kozlov. Military connections would make sense. Emily checked her watch. It's almost midnight. What's your next move? I need to verify some of this information, Michael replied. And I need to prepare for tomorrow night. I'm coming with you, Emily said firmly. To the mill. No, Kozlov was clear I come alone. And you trust him, Emily challenged. The man implicated in multiple murders. I don't trust anyone right now, Michael admitted. But Sarah's life depends on my playing along, at least initially. Emily considered this, then nodded reluctantly. At least let me help you prepare. Military-grade toxins, professional killings, we're dealing with trained operatives. You'll need more than your service weapon. I have resources, Michael assured her, old contacts. But there is something you can do. The toxin used on your brother, if you can get a sample, analyze it. It might help us identify who we're dealing with. They parted ways in the hospital parking lot, Emily returning to her brother's bedside while Michael headed back to the station. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the town glistening under streetlights, quiet and unaware of the darkness gathering at its edges. At the station, Michael found Jack waiting in his office, a folder in hand. You'll want to see this, Jack said, placing the folder on the desk. Mayor Barnes has been receiving regular payments from a shell company based in the Caymans. Same company owns a significant stake in the resort development. Michael opened the folder, examining the financial records. How far back do these payments go? At least 5 years, Jack replied. But here's the interesting part. The shell company was established 15 years ago, right after the warehouse incident, and one of its founding directors was Thomas Wilkins. The pieces were falling into place. Barnes was connected to Wilkins, who was connected to Kozlov. The resort development wasn't just about revitalizing Riverwood, it was about establishing a new base of operations, a laundering mechanism for illicit funds. There's more, Jack continued. I checked Barnes' phone records. He's been in regular contact with a number registered to a Catherine Voss. She's the public face of the resort development, but I did some digging. Before she was Catherine Voss, she was Katerina Volkov, Viktor Kozlov's sister. Michael's head snapped up. You're sure? Jack nodded. Changed her name legally 12 years ago. Built a reputation as a legitimate businesswoman, but the connection is there. The implications were staggering. The resort development was Kozlov's operation, a way to reestablish his presence in Riverwood now, with the mayor's explicit cooperation. But why would Kozlov reveal this to Michael? Why expose his own operation? Unless he wasn't the one behind the killings. Unless the judge was someone else entirely, someone targeting both Michael and Kozlov. Jack, Michael said quietly, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. How well did you know James Wilson? Jack's expression shifted subtly. Never met him. Why? Because someone is killing people connected to the Hayes case, and somehow they knew Wilson would be in Riverwood. Someone tipped them off. Understanding dawned in Jack's eyes. You think there's a leak in the department. I think there's a leak somewhere, Michael corrected. And until I know where I have to be careful who I trust. Jack straightened his expression resolute. I understand. What do you need me to do? Keep digging into Barnes and Voss. But be discreet. If they suspect we're onto them, they might accelerate their timetable. After Jack left, Michael returned to the evidence from Diane's grave. The financial records showed a complex network of transactions, all ultimately leading back to a single entity, the Circle. According to Diane's notes, it was a coalition of corrupt officials using Kozlov's operation as both a source of intelligence and illicit income. But Hayes had discovered their arrangement and gathered evidence. For that, he was killed. Tommy Chen, who witnessed the execution, disappeared. And when Diane started investigating years later, she met the same fate. Now, 15 years later, someone was forcing the truth into the open, using Michael as their instrument. But who and why? Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Toxin analysis complete, military grade but modified. Only a few labs have the capability. One is operated by a private military contractor, Sentinel Services. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Sentinel Services was run by former Special Forces operators providing security and specialized services to government agencies and private clients. Their CEO was a former Army colonel named Richard Hayes, David Hayes' older brother. Michael's breath caught as the full picture emerged. Richard Hayes had discovered the truth about his brother's death and was using Michael to expose those responsible. He was the judge systematically eliminating anyone connected to the conspiracy while forcing Michael to face his own role in the cover-up. The killings, the messages, Sarah's abduction, all designed to make Michael uncover the evidence Diane had hidden, to lead him to the final confrontation at the paper mill. But there was still one question: why involve Kozlov? Unless Kozlov wasn't a willing participant, unless he too was being manipulated, forced into this final confrontation. Michael needed to speak with Kozlov again, but how the Russian had vanished after their cemetery meeting, and Michael had no way to contact him. His phone rang an unknown number. Reeves, he answered cautiously. Chief, the voice was digitally altered like before. I trust you've had time to review the evidence. I have, Michael replied, keeping his voice steady. I know who you are, Colonel Hayes. A pause. Very good, Chief Reeves. You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. Why involve my daughter? Why not come to me directly? Would you have believed me? The altered voice challenged. Would you have risked your career, your reputation on the word of a stranger? No. You needed to discover the truth yourself, to see the evidence with your own eyes. And the killings, Wilson Miller, necessary sacrifices, came the cold reply. Wilson was part of the cover-up. Miller was Kozlov's man, responsible for distributing the poison that funded their operation. They deserved judgment. And my ex-wife, did she deserve judgment too? Another pause. Diane's death was not my doing. That was Wilkins covering his tracks. By the time I learned what she'd discovered, it was too late. Michael processed this, trying to separate truth from manipulation. What happens tomorrow night at the mill? Justice Chief Reeves, the Circle will be exposed, and those responsible for my brother's death will face judgment. Bring the 3 keys. Come alone. And Sarah will be released unharmed once the vault is opened. You have my word. The call ended, leaving Michael with more questions than answers. He didn't trust Hayes, but he had little choice but to play along, at least until Sarah was safe. He spent the next hour preparing, gathering weapons and equipment from his personal cache. If he was walking into a trap, he would be ready. His phone rang again. This time it was the veterinarian. Chief Reeves, she said, her voice lifting with good news. Blue is responding to treatment. He's not out of the woods yet, but his vitals have stabilized. Relief washed over Michael. Thank you, Doc. Can I see him? He's resting now, but you can visit in the morning. After hanging up, Michael leaned back in his chair, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. He hadn't slept in over 48 hours, and the weight of everything Sarah's abduction, the conspiracy, the impending confrontation pressed down on him. He closed his eyes just for a moment. The warehouse materialized around him, dark, cavernous, filled with shadows. Hayes stood before him, blood spreading across his chest. You promised to protect them. Mike, Hayes accused, his eyes cold with betrayal. You promised to find the truth. Michael tried to speak, but no words came. The warehouse dissolved, replaced by Diane's grave, the earth torn open, accusing eyes staring up at him from the darkness. You never listened, Diane's voice echoed, always too focused on the next case, never looking back. The scene shifted again. The paper mill dimly lit. Sarah bound to a chair in the center of the room. Behind her stood a figure in shadow, a gun pressed to her head. Dad, Sarah pleaded, why didn't you save me? Michael jerked awake, heart pounding. Dawn light filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across his office. He had slept at his desk, the evidence still spread before him. His phone showed several missed calls from Emily and one from Jack. He called Emily first. Robert's condition has stabilized, she reported. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. But that's not why I called. I've been analyzing the evidence you shared. The financial records show transfers to an account associated with a judge in the federal court system, Douglas Freeman. Hayes's case went before Freeman, Michael recalled. He dismissed all charges against the agents involved in the warehouse raid, citing national security concerns. Exactly, Emily confirmed. And Freeman recently approved the land use permits for the resort development, overriding environmental concerns. He's part of the circle, Michael concluded, another piece of the puzzle. There's more, Emily continued. I traced the ownership of Sentinel Services. Richard Hayes isn't just the CEO, he's been systematically targeting former Special Forces operators with connections to Wilkins, building his own private army. For what purpose? Revenge, Emily said simply. His brother was killed, the killers protected by the system. He spent 15 years building the resources to bring them all down. Using me as his instrument, Michael added bitterly. Using all of us, Emily corrected. My father's connection, my brother's research, your daughter's abduction, he's manipulated every angle. Michael considered this. I need to see Blue, then we'll formulate a plan for tonight. At the veterinary clinic, Michael found Blue awake but weak, his tail offering a feeble wag of recognition. The aging retriever had been part of Michael's life since before the warehouse incident, a constant companion through the darkest days of his life. Hey, boy, Michael murmured, kneeling beside the dog's bed. You hang in there, okay? I've got some things to take care of, but I'll be back soon. Blue's eyes, cloudy with age but still alert, watched Michael with unwavering trust. Michael scratched behind the dog's ears, taking comfort in the simple connection. Chief Reeves, the veterinarian approached, clipboard in hand. Blue's responding well to treatment. The poison was sophisticated, designed to cause a slow, painful death. Whoever did this wanted you to suffer. But he'll recover. I believe so, she confirmed. Though at his age, he'll need careful monitoring. Michael thanked her and returned to his truck. His next stop was the bank, where he deposited the 3 keys and the evidence in a secure box. If anything happened to him tonight, Emily would know where to find it. Back at the station, he found Jack waiting with new information. Chief, I've been monitoring communications around town. Barnes made a call this morning to Catherine Voss. They're accelerating the timetable for the resort groundbreaking, moving it up to next week. They're getting nervous, Michael observed. They know something's happening. There's more, Jack continued. A private security team arrived at the resort site this morning, heavily armed, military precision. They're setting up a perimeter around the property, including the old paper mill. Hayes's men, Michael guessed, getting into position for tonight. What exactly is happening tonight? Jack asked, his expression concerned. Michael considered how much to reveal. Jack had proven himself trustworthy so far, but the fewer people who knew the full plan, the better. I'm meeting someone who claims to have information about Sarah's abduction, he said finally. It could be a trap, but it's my only lead. Jack nodded slowly. You need backup. No, Michael replied firmly. This is something I need to handle alone. With all due respect, Chief, that's bullshit. Jack's expression hardened. You're walking into a potential ambush looking for your daughter. You need someone watching your back. Before Michael could respond, his phone rang. Mayor Barnes. Reeves, Barnes barked without preamble. My office now. We need to discuss these murders. I'm in the middle of an investigation, Harold. This isn't a request, Barnes replied coldly. It's an order, 1 hour. The call ended abruptly. Michael exchanged a glance with Jack. Seems the mayor's getting impatient, Jack observed. He's worried, Michael corrected. If Hayes is targeting the circle, Barnes is potentially in the crosshairs. An hour later, Michael sat across from Mayor Harold Barnes in the expansive office at Town Hall. Barnes, a portly man in his 60s with thinning hair and expensive suits, paced behind his desk. 2 murders in 1 week, Barnes said, his tone accusatory. Both with strange markings, both generating headlines that have reached the resort developers. They're getting nervous, Michael. Murder investigations tend to make people nervous, Michael replied evenly, especially those with something to hide. Barnes stopped, pacing, his eyes narrowing. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, Michael said. I'm stating a fact. The resort development is connected to these killings, as are you. Barnes's face flushed. That's an outrageous accusation. I've dedicated the last 5 years to bringing economic opportunity back to Riverwood. And lining your pockets in the process, Michael added. The offshore payments, the connections to Catherine Voss, or should I call her Katerina Volkov, Viktor Kozlov's sister. The color drained from Barnes' face. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Reeves. Actually, I do, Barnes, Michael replied, rising to his feet. I know about the Circle, I know about Wilkins, about Judge Freeman. I know Hayes was murdered because he discovered your arrangement with Kozlov. And I know Diane was killed when she got too close to the truth. Barnes backed away, reaching for his desk drawer. Michael was faster, drawing his weapon and leveling it at the mayor. Don't, he warned. Hands where I can see them. Barnes slowly raised his hands. You're making a mistake, Reeves. These people, you have no idea how far their reach extends. They'll destroy you, your daughter, everyone you care about. They already tried that, Michael replied coldly. Now it's my turn. What do you want? Barnes asked, sweat beading on his forehead. Information. Tonight at the paper mill, what's the plan? Barnes hesitated, then slumped in defeat. Wilkins is coming, with a team. They know you found the keys, know about the vault. They plan to eliminate everyone you Hayes Kozlov, clean slate. And Sarah, a necessary casualty, Barnes admitted. Once they have the evidence, there can be no witnesses. Rage flared in Michael's chest. It took every ounce of self-control not to pull the trigger. You sanctioned the abduction of my daughter. I didn't know until after, Barnes protested. Wilkins operates independently. The Circle just provides protection, financing, in exchange for a percentage of Kozlov's operation. And my ex-wife, did you know they planned to kill her? Barnes looked away. There were rumors, nothing concrete. Michael stepped closer, pressing the barrel of his gun against Barnes' temple. Give me one reason why I shouldn't end you right now. Because you need me, Barnes gasped. I can help you save Sarah. I can call Wilkins, tell him I have information about Hayes' plans, create a distraction. Michael considered this. Barnes was a snake, but he might be useful. Make the call. Tell Wilkins you've discovered Hayes is planning to ambush them at the mill, that they should adjust their timetable. Barnes nodded eagerly, reaching for his phone. Michael watched as the mayor made the call, his voice surprisingly steady as he fed Wilkins the manufactured intelligence. After hanging up, Barnes looked to Michael with desperate hope. Now let me go, he pleaded. I've done what you asked. Not quite, Michael replied. You're going to write out a full confession. Every detail of your involvement with the Circle, every illegal transaction, every cover-up. Then you're going to sign it. That would be suicide. Consider it life insurance, Michael countered. As long as that confession exists, the Circle has reason to keep you alive. If anything happens to me or my daughter, it goes public. 30 minutes later, Michael left Town Hall with Barnes's signed confession secured in his jacket. The mayor remained in his office, thoroughly cowed and acutely aware that his fate now depended on Michael's survival. Back at the station, Michael found Emily waiting in his office, her expression grim. Robert's taken a turn for the worse, she reported. The doctors aren't optimistic. Michael's heart sank. I'm sorry, Emily. She nodded, visibly struggling to maintain her professional demeanor. What did Barnes tell you? Wilkins is coming tonight, with a team. They plan to eliminate everyone and take the evidence. So it's a three-way standoff, Emily concluded. Hayes Kozlov and Wilkins with you and Sarah caught in the middle. That's why I need to go alone, Michael explained. Too many variables already. Adding more people just increases the risk to Sarah. Emily studied him for a moment, then reached into her bag, retrieving a small case. At least take this. It's an antidote to the toxin they used on Robert. If they try the same with you or Sarah, it might buy you some time. Michael accepted the case, tucking it into his jacket. Thank you. There's something else, Emily said, her voice softening. I've been thinking about my father. If he witnessed Hayes' murder, if he saw who pulled the trigger, then he's the one person who could conclusively identify the killer. But he disappeared 15 years ago, Michael reminded her. What if he didn't? Emily challenged. What if he's been in hiding all this time? What if Hayes found him, convinced him to come forward now? The possibility hadn't occurred to Michael. Tommy Chen, alive after all these years, potentially the key witness who could bring down the circle. It would explain why this is happening now, Michael admitted. If Hayes found your father, got his testimony, then the circle would be desperate to silence him, Emily finished. They'd use any leverage they could find, including Sarah. Michael checked his watch. 6 hours until the meeting at the paper mill. 6 hours to finalize his plan, to prepare for every contingency. I need to make some calls, he said. Old contacts, people I can trust. Emily rose to leave. I should get back to Robert, but Michael... She hesitated. Be careful tonight. These people have everything to lose. After she left, Michael placed a call to Agent Peterson at the FBI. I need a favor, Michael said without preamble. Off the record. I'm listening, Peterson replied cautiously. Thomas Wilkins. I need his current location, movements, associates. Anything you can get me in the next few hours. Wilkins. Peterson sounded surprised. He retired 5 years ago, living in Virginia as far as I know. Check again, Michael insisted. Specifically check if he's traveling to Riverwood today. This is about the Hayes case, isn't it? Peterson's voice lowered. What have you found, Mike? Evidence that Hayes was murdered by someone inside the Bureau. Evidence that's been buried for 15 years. A long pause. That's a serious accusation. It's more than an accusation, Michael replied. It's the truth. And it gets worse. There's a group called the Circle Corrupt Officials who've been protecting Kozlov's operation for years. Wilkins is part of it. So is Judge Freeman. Jesus, Peterson muttered. If you're right, this goes beyond anything I can handle alone. I'm not asking you to handle it, Michael assured him. Just get me Wilkins' location. The rest I'll take care of. After ending the call, Michael turned to his final preparations. He cleaned his service weapon and his personal sidearm, checked his tactical vest, and packed additional ammunition. If this turned into a firefight, he would be outgunned, but not unprepared. His phone rang. Jack calling from outside. Chief, you need to see this. Michael found his deputy in the parking lot staring at Michael's truck. All 4 tires had been slashed, and a message was spray-painted across the hood, no escape. It happened in broad daylight, Jack said, disbelief evident in his voice. Right in front of the station. They're sending a message, Michael replied, unsurprised. Making sure I know they're watching. Chief, what the hell is going on? Jack demanded. First the murders, then your daughter, now this. You need to tell me what we're dealing with. Michael studied his deputy, weighing the risks of full disclosure against the potential benefits of having Jack's support. Finally, he made his decision. Not here, he said quietly. Inside. In his office, Michael shared the full story. The warehouse incident, Hayes' murder, the Circle Kozlov's return, Richard Hayes' revenge plot, Sarah's abduction, the confrontation plan for that night. Jack listened without interruption, his expression shifting from disbelief to anger as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. So tonight you're walking into the middle of a 3-way standoff between a corrupt FBI agent, a Russian crime boss, and a vengeful special forces colonel, Jack summarized. Alone. That's the plan, Michael confirmed. It's suicide, Jack stated flatly. Even if you manage to get Sarah out, they'll hunt you both down afterward. The Circle can't afford to leave witnesses. I don't have a choice, Michael replied. It's the only way to save Sarah. Jack was silent for a moment, then said, There's always a choice. Let me help you. I can position myself as a sniper, provide cover if things go south. Michael shook his head. Too risky. If Hayes' men spot you or Wilkins' team, they might kill Sarah immediately. Then let me secure an escape route, Jack pressed. Once you have Sarah, you'll need a way out. Before Michael could respond, his phone rang. Peterson returning his call. Wilkins boarded a private jet in Virginia 2 hours ago, Peterson reported. Flight plan shows destination as a private airfield 30 miles from Riverwood. Arrival estimated at 8 p.m. Who's with him? 4 men, all former military or intelligence, heavily armed based on equipment manifests. Anything else? Yeah, Peterson's voice lowered. I did some digging into Wilkins' finances. Found some irregularities offshore accounts, shell companies. And get this, he's been in regular contact with Judge Douglas Freeman. The same judge who dismissed the charges in the Hayes case, Michael confirmed. Exactly, Mike. Whatever you're planning tonight, be careful. These people play for keeps. After ending the call, Michael turned back to Jack. Wilkins will be here by 8. That gives us 3 hours to prepare. Us, Jack repeated pointedly. You're not doing this alone, Chief. Michael studied his deputy, seeing the determination in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. All right, but we do this my way. Your job is to secure an escape route and provide backup only if absolutely necessary. Under no circumstances do you engage unless I give the signal. Understood, Jack agreed. What's the signal? 3 shots in rapid succession, Michael replied. If you hear that, it means things have gone completely sideways. They spent the next hour planning, reviewing maps of the paper mill and surrounding area, identifying potential escape routes and vantage points. Jack would position himself in the woods north of the mill with a clear view of the main entrance but hidden from sight. As sunset approached, Michael received a text from an unknown number. Change of plans. Mill secured by unknown hostiles. Meet at Diane's grave, 9 p.m. Come alone. Hayes, Michael murmured, showing Jack the message. He spotted Wilkins' team at the mill. Could be a trap, Jack warned. Could be, Michael agreed, but it's my only chance to find Sarah. The cemetery is more exposed, Jack noted, studying the map. Less cover, fewer escape routes. But also fewer places for an ambush, Michael countered. I'll approach from the east through the old maintenance shed. You take position by the oak grove, you'll have a clear line of sight to Diane's grave. As darkness fell, Michael retrieved the 3 keys from the bank, securing them in his jacket. He wore his tactical vest beneath a dark jacket, both his service weapon and personal sidearm holstered and ready. If anything happens to me, Michael told Jack, the evidence is in a safety deposit box at First Riverwood. Box 329. Emily Chen has the key. Jack nodded grimly. It won't come to that. And Jack, if I do not make it, take care of Blue. He doesn't have much time left, but he shouldn't spend it alone. You'll be taking care of Blue yourself, Jack insisted. Tomorrow morning once this is over. They parted ways at the station, Jack heading to his position at the cemetery, while Michael made one final stop, the veterinary clinic where Blue was recovering. The aging retriever lifted his head as Michael entered, tail wagging weakly against the blanket. Hey, boy, Michael murmured, kneeling beside the dog's bed. I've got to go out for a while. You rest up, okay? I'll be back soon. Blue whined softly as if sensing the gravity of the situation. Michael stroked the dog's graying muzzle, taking comfort in the simple, unconditional connection they shared. You've been with me through everything, Michael said quietly. All the bad decisions, all the mistakes. Never judging, never leaving. I need to make things right now, Blue. For Sarah, for Diane, for Hayes. I need to finish this. The dog's brown eyes watched him steadily, filled with the same trust they'd shown for 15 years. Michael gave Blue a final pat, then rose to leave. See you soon, old friend. The cemetery was shrouded in mist as Michael approached the gravestones emerging from the fog like silent sentinels. He moved silently through the eastern entrance, using the maintenance shed for cover as he scanned the area for any sign of movement. Diane's grave was visible in the distance, the disturbed earth from his earlier excavation, now covered by a tarp. No one appeared to be waiting there, but Michael knew appearances could be deceiving. He tapped his earpiece, activating the comlink with Jack. In position, any movement. Negative? Jack's voice came through barely above a whisper. Area appears clear, but visibility is limited due to fog. Michael checked his watch, 8:55 p.m. Almost time. He moved closer to the grave, staying low and using headstones for cover. At precisely 9 p.m., a figure emerged from the fog to the west, a man in a military-style jacket, his face obscured by the darkness and mist. That's far enough, Chief Reeves, the man called, his voice matching the one from the phone call, though no longer digitally altered. Do you have the keys? I do, Michael replied, his hand resting on his concealed weapon. Where's my daughter? Safe, the man assured him. For now, show me the keys. Michael removed the 3 keys from his pocket, holding them up. Now it's your turn. Who are you? The man stepped forward, revealing his face, a harder, older version of David Hayes with the same blue eyes, but none of the warmth Michael remembered. Richard Hayes, former Army colonel, now CEO of Sentinel Services and self-appointed judge of those who had wronged his family. You recognize me, Hayes observed. Good, that makes this simpler. Where's Sarah? Michael demanded again. Not here, Hayes replied. That would be too risky given Wilkins' resources. She's at a secure location unharmed. Why should I believe you? Hayes reached into his jacket, retrieving a phone. He tapped the screen, then turned it to show Michael a live video feed of Sarah in what appeared to be a hotel room, watching television. She appeared unharmed, though clearly under guard. She doesn't know why she's being held, Hayes explained. My men told her it was protective custody, that there was a threat against her life. Technically true. What's your end game here, Hayes? Michael asked, keeping his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. Revenge for your brother. Justice, Hayes corrected. For David, for all the others, Wilkins and his circle have eliminated over the years. Tommy Chen, your ex-wife, countless others who got too close to the truth. By becoming a killer yourself, Michael challenged. Wilson Miller, they had families too. Necessary sacrifices, Hayes replied coldly. Wilson helped cover up my brother's murder. Miller was Kozlov's right hand, responsible for distributing the drugs that funded their operation. They were complicit. And what about Sarah? Is she a necessary sacrifice too? Hayes's expression hardened. She was leverage, nothing more. Once the circle is exposed, she'll be released. That's not good enough, Michael replied. I want her released now before I hand over these keys. That wasn't the agreement, Hayes warned. I'm changing the terms, Michael stated flatly. You want these keys, you want my cooperation in exposing the circle, then Sarah walks free first. Hayes studied him for a long moment, calculating. Finally, he nodded. Very well, I'll make the call. As Hayes reached for his phone, a new voice spoke from the darkness. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Colonel. Michael turned to see Viktor Kozlov emerging from the mist, flanked by two armed men. The Russian crime boss looked relaxed, almost amused by the situation. Mr. Kozlov, Hayes acknowledged without surprise. I was wondering when you'd make your appearance. You didn't think I'd miss the grand finale, did you? Kozlov replied with a cold smile. Not after 15 years of planning. Michael's hand tightened around his concealed weapon. What is this, you two working together? Temporarily, Kozlov admitted. The Colonel and I share a common enemy. Though our methods differ, our goal is the same: to expose the circle and eliminate those who betrayed us both. Betrayed you, Michael echoed incredulously. You were their partner, their asset. Until they decided I was a liability, Kozlov replied, his expression darkening. After the warehouse, Wilkins tried to have me eliminated to tie up loose ends. I barely escaped with my life, was forced to rebuild from nothing. So this resort development, it's what, your revenge? My return, Kozlov corrected, establishing a legitimate business empire right under their noses, using their own corrupt system against them. Poetic, don't you think? Before Michael could respond, a new sound cut through the night, the distinctive whir of helicopter blades approaching from the east. Right on schedule, Hayes noted, checking his watch. Wilkins always did prefer to make an entrance. Michael tapped his earpiece. Jack, we've got incoming. Helicopter, east side. I see it, Jack confirmed. Looks like a private chopper. 4 No-5 figures disembarking, heavily armed. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. What had begun as a tense negotiation was about to become a firefight, with Sarah's life hanging in the balance. Listen to me, Michael said urgently, addressing both Hayes and Kozlov. If Wilkins is here, that means he knows about the meeting. He'll have men positioned around the cemetery. We need to move now. Agreed, Hayes replied calmly. My team is already in position. On my signal, they'll engage Wilkins' men, creating a diversion. That's our window to reach the vault. What vault? Michael demanded. I thought the paper mill was the location. That was misdirection, Hayes explained. The actual vault is beneath this cemetery, accessible through the old crypt at the north end. That's why I changed the meeting location when I spotted Wilkins' team at the mill. Kozlov nodded in confirmation. The crypt was part of the Underground Railroad, with tunnels leading to various points in town. One connects directly to the basement of First Riverwood Bank, where the safety deposit boxes were kept. The pieces fell into place in Michael's mind. Hayes had found evidence in a safety deposit box at First Riverwood, evidence that could be accessed through the underground tunnel system. The 3 keys weren't for a vault at the paper mill. They were for a hidden entrance in the cemetery crypt. We need to move, Hayes urged, as the sound of the helicopter grew louder. My men will cover our retreat to the crypt. Michael hesitated, torn between the need to find Sarah and the suspicion that he was still being manipulated. What about my daughter? One call from me and she's released, Hayes promised. But we need to secure the evidence first. It's our only leverage against the circle. The helicopter was visible now, a dark shape against the night sky searchlight sweeping the cemetery grounds. Time was running out. All right, Michael decided. Lead the way to the crypt. But understand this, if anything happens to Sarah, I'll kill you both myself. Hayes smiled thinly. I'd expect nothing less, Chief Reeves. The 3 men moved quickly through the cemetery, using the fog and gravestones for cover as they headed toward the ancient crypt at the northern edge. Behind them, gunfire erupted as Hayes's men engaged Wilkins' team, creating the promised diversion. "Jack," Michael whispered into his earpiece, "we're heading to the North Crypt. Cover our retreat, but stay hidden. This is about to get messy." "Copy that," Jack replied. "Be careful, Chief. I've got eyes on at least 8 hostiles, all heavily armed." The crypt loomed before them, an imposing stone structure dating back to the 1800s. Hayes approached the iron door, producing a key from his pocket. "This is where we find out if 15 years of planning was worth it," he murmured, inserting the key and turning it with a heavy click. The door swung open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Hayes activated a tactical flashlight, illuminating the way forward. "After you, gentlemen," he said, gesturing for Michael and Kozlov to enter. "The past awaits." Michael entered, first gun drawn, senses alert for any sign of treachery. The crypt smelled of damp earth and forgotten history, the air noticeably cooler as they descended the steps. At the bottom, they found themselves in a small chamber with 3 tunnels branching off in different directions. Hayes led them to the central passage, which ended at a modern steel door incongruously set into the ancient stonework. "This is it," Hayes announced. "The vault David discovered 15 years ago. 3 keys, 3 locks." The door featured 3 keyholes arranged in a triangle pattern. Hayes gestured to Michael. "Your keys, Chief Reeves." Michael removed the 3 keys from his pocket, but hesitated before handing them over. "Sarah first. Make the call." Hayes sighed in irritation, but complied, retrieving his phone and dialing a number. "Release the girl," he ordered. "Yes, now. Send confirmation when it's done." He ended the call, looking to Michael expectantly. "Satisfied?" "I will be when I see proof," Michael replied firmly. Before Hayes could respond, his phone chimed with an incoming message, a video showing Sarah being escorted from the hotel room, free to leave. "There's your proof," Hayes said. "Now the keys." Michael handed over the keys, watching as Hayes inserted them into the 3 locks one by one. With the final key in place, Hayes turned all 3 simultaneously, and the sound of heavy bolts retracting echoed through the chamber. 15 years, Hayes murmured. 15 years of planning, waiting, building the resources to bring them down. And now, finally, justice for David. The vault door swung open, revealing a small room lined with metal shelving. On these shelves sat dozens of document boxes, electronic equipment, and what appeared to be recording devices. "My brother's insurance policy," Hayes explained, entering the vault. He suspected Wilkins might try to eliminate him, so he gathered evidence against the entire circle. Financial records, surveillance footage, recorded conversations, everything needed to destroy them. Kozlov followed, examining the contents with evident satisfaction. Enough to bring down judges, politicians, federal agents, the entire corrupt system that protected them for decades. Michael remained by the door, still suspicious. Why not turn this over to the authorities? Why the elaborate game with the murders, the messages, my daughter's abduction? "Because the authorities are compromised," Hayes replied, as if explaining something obvious. "The circle's influence extends throughout law enforcement, the judiciary, even parts of the government. Going through official channels would have meant the evidence disappeared just like before. So instead, you became judge, jury, and executioner," Michael challenged, "killing anyone connected to the conspiracy." "Only those with blood on their hands," Hayes insisted. "Wilson helped cover up David's murder. Miller distributed the drugs that funded the circle's operations. They deserved what they got. And the others on your list, Mayor Barnes, Judge Freeman, Catherine Voss, do they deserve execution too?" Hayes's expression hardened. "They're all complicit, all part of the system that protected my brother's killers." "And what makes you different from them?" Michael pressed. "You've kidnapped, tortured, murdered, all in the name of justice. You've become what you claim to hate." Hayes moved suddenly, his hand dropping to his sidearm. "You don't understand, Reeves. You can't understand unless you've lost someone the way I lost David." "I understand loss," Michael replied evenly, his own weapon already drawn and aimed at Hayes's chest. "I understand what it does to you, how it changes you. But this," he gestured to the vault, the evidence of Hayes's years-long obsession, "this isn't justice, it's vengeance." Kozlov watched the confrontation with calculating eyes, making no move to intervene. "You're wrong," Hayes insisted, his composure cracking slightly. "This is justice, the only justice possible in a corrupt system. The Circle took everything from me, from you, from countless others. They deserve to pay. Not like this," Michael said firmly. "Not through more bloodshed." Hayes's expression darkened. "I thought you of all people would understand. After what they did to Hayes, to your ex-wife. After they took your daughter." "I understand better than you think," Michael replied. I've spent 15 years living with the consequences of that night, with the knowledge that I failed my partner, my family. But becoming a killer won't bring them back. It won't bring David back. For a moment, something shifted in Hayes's eyes, a flicker of doubt, of recognition. Then his expression hardened again. It's too late for second thoughts, Reeves. We're committed now. Before Michael could respond, gunfire erupted above them, closer than before. The diversion had failed. Wilkins' men had found the crypt. We're out of time, Kozlov announced, moving toward a shelf containing a metal briefcase. We need to take what we came for and leave. Hayes nodded in agreement. Grab the core evidence, financial records, the surveillance footage of David's murder, the recorded conversations. Leave the rest. As they gathered the materials, Michael's earpiece crackled with Jack's urgent voice. Chief, we've got a problem. Wilkins' team has breached the crypt entrance, and there's something else. I've spotted Barnes with them. Michael cursed under his breath. The mayor had betrayed them, likely in exchange for protection from the circle. Hayes, Michael called. We've got a company, Wilkins and his team, plus Mayor Barnes. Hayes smiled grimly. Perfect, all the key players in one place. This ends tonight. The cold certainty in Hayes's voice sent a chill down Michael's spine. The former colonel wasn't planning on arresting anyone. This was to be his final act of judgment, a bloody conclusion to 15 years of planning. What are you planning? Michael demanded. Hayes reached into his jacket, retrieving what looked like a detonator. Insurance. The entire tunnel system is wired with explosives. If we can't leave with the evidence, no one leaves at all. You're insane, Michael breathed. There are people above us, innocent civilians visiting the cemetery. Collateral damage? Hayes replied coldly. Unavoidable in war. This isn't war, Michael objected. This is murder. Mass murder. It's justice, Hayes insisted. The only justice the Circle will ever face. Michael's grip tightened on his weapon. I can't let you do this. Hayes leveled his own gun at Michael. You don't have a choice, Reeves. You're either with us or against us. The standoff was interrupted by Kozlov, who had finished gathering the evidence into the briefcase. Gentlemen, we can continue this philosophical debate elsewhere. Right now, we need to leave. Hayes nodded toward the third tunnel. That passage leads to an exit near the river. We can use it to... His words were cut short by the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly from the main entrance. Michael turned to see Wilkins himself entering the chamber, flanked by two armed men. Behind them came Mayor Barnes, his expression a mixture of fear and resignation. Well, well, Wilkins drawled, his silver hair and tailored suit incongruous in the ancient crypt. The gang's all here. Richard Hayes, the vengeful brother, Victor Kozlov back from the dead, and Michael Reeves still trying to piece together what happened that night. Hayes raised his weapon, but Wilkins' men were faster, their rifles trained on the three men with unwavering precision. I wouldn't, Wilkins advised calmly. My men are former Delta Force. They'll put you down before you can pull the trigger. Hayes lowered his gun slowly, though his other hand still held the detonator. Thomas Wilkins, the man who murdered my brother. A regrettable necessity, Wilkins replied without a hint of remorse. David stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. He wouldn't be reasoned with, wouldn't accept the bigger picture. The bigger picture, Hayes repeated incredulously. You mean your arrangement with Kozlov? The money, the drugs, the corruption? I mean national security, Wilkins corrected. Kozlov's operation provided intelligence that saved American lives. The drugs, the money, those were just the cost of doing business. You're delusional, Michael interjected. You betrayed everything the Bureau stands for. You murdered a federal agent, covered it up, and then killed anyone who got too close to the truth. Wilkins turned his cold gaze to Michael. Always the idealist, Reeves. That's why you were never promoted beyond field agent. You couldn't see the complexities, the necessary compromises. I saw enough that night, Michael replied. I saw Hayes murdered in cold blood. I just didn't know it was you who pulled the trigger. A split-second decision, Wilkins admitted with a shrug. Hayes had the evidence, was ready to expose the entire operation. I couldn't allow that. So you shot him, Michael concluded, your own agent, then blamed it on Kozlov's men. And you believed it, Wilkins noted. All these years you accepted the official story, until now. He gestured to the vault. I see you found David's insurance policy. Impressive foresight on his part. Hayes's hand tightened around the detonator. It's over, Wilkins. Even if you kill us all, copies of the evidence have already been distributed. The circle is finished. Is it? Wilkins smiled thinly. Mayor Barnes, why don't you tell them what you told me earlier? Barnes stepped forward, avoiding eye contact with Michael. The confession I wrote, he admitted. It's useless. Half the names are wrong, the dates altered. and I've already signed a statement claiming Reeves coerced me under threat of violence. Michael's stomach sank. Barnes had outmaneuvered him, rendering the confession worthless as evidence. You see, Wilkins said smugly, the circle protects its own, always has, always will. Hayes looked to Kozlov, then to Michael, a silent message passing between them. Then with deliberate slowness, he raised the detonator. Perhaps, Hayes acknowledged, but even the most powerful circle can be broken. All it takes is one decisive action. Wilkins' eyes widened as he recognized the device in Hayes' hand. You wouldn't. You'll die too. A sacrifice I'm prepared to make, Hayes replied with eerie calm. For David, for justice. Hayes, don't, Michael urged. There's another way. The evidence in that vault, we can still use it, still expose them. They'll bury it, Hayes responded, his finger hovering over the button. Just like before, the circle is too powerful, too entrenched. Then we break the circle another way, Michael insisted. Not with more death, with the truth. He tapped his earpiece. Jack, you getting all this? Every word, Chief, Jack confirmed. Recording everything, and I'm not the only one. Wilkins' expression shifted as understanding dawned. What have you done, Reeves? Insurance of my own, Michael replied. Jack's been broadcasting this entire conversation to Agent Tom Peterson at the FBI, a man who, unlike you, still believes in justice. Peterson, Wilkins scoffed. He's nobody. He can't touch me. Maybe not alone, Michael conceded. But he's not alone. The broadcast is going to multiple recipients, journalists, internal affairs, even the Attorney General's office. Your confession is out there, Wilkins. The truth about Hayes, about the circle, about all of it. Hayes looked at Michael with newfound respect. You planned this. I learned from you, Michael replied. Always have a contingency plan. Wilkins' composure cracked. Kill them, he ordered his men. Kill them all. What happened next unfolded in seconds that seemed to stretch into eternity. Hayes pressed the detonator, but instead of the expected explosion, strobe lights suddenly activated throughout the chamber, momentarily blinding everyone. Michael had anticipated Hayes' failsafe and had Jack disable the main charges, replacing them with flashbangs powerful enough to disorient but not to kill. In the confusion, Michael fired 3 rapid shots, the signal for Jack to move in with the backup team he'd positioned outside the crypt. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Michael tackled Hayes to the ground as Wilkins' men opened fire. Kozlov dove behind a stone pillar, returning fire with deadly precision. When the chaos subsided, 2 of Wilkins' men lay dead. Wilkins himself was wounded, clutching his shoulder where Michael's bullet had struck him. Barnes cowered in a corner, unharmed but terrified. Hayes struggled beneath Michael, his expression a mixture of rage and betrayal. You changed my charges, you knew. I suspected, Michael corrected, disarming the former colonel. You're too thorough not to have a final solution. Too committed to your version of justice to walk away. Jack appeared at the entrance, leading a team of state police officers who quickly secured the scene, disarming and restraining everyone. Perfect timing, Michael acknowledged, rising to his feet. Heard the signal, Jack replied with a grim smile. Figured things had gone sideways. Kozlov, remarkably calm, despite the circumstances, allowed himself to be handcuffed without resistance. Well played, Chief Reeves, he commented. You've managed to outmaneuver us all. Not all of us, came a new voice from the tunnel entrance. Michael turned to see Emily Chen entering the chamber, and beside her, impossibly unbelievably, stood her father, Tommy Chen. Older, grayer, but unmistakably alive. Tommy, Michael breathed. You're alive. The former undercover agent nodded. Thanks to Richard Hayes. He found me in Thailand 3 years ago, convinced me to come forward with what I saw that night. He pointed to Wilkins. I watched him execute David Hayes in cold blood. Shot him in the back while David was trying to help you. Wilkins glared at Tommy with undisguised hatred. You were supposed to be dead. They told me the body was disposed of. They lied, Tommy replied simply. Just as you've been lying all these years. Emily stepped forward, addressing Michael. We've been working with the Attorney General's office for months, building a case against the Circle. Tonight was the final piece, getting Wilkins's confession on record. You knew, Michael asked, stunned by the revelation. Not everything, Emily admitted. I knew my father was alive, knew he was working with Hayes, but I didn't know about Sarah's abduction until you told me. That wasn't part of the plan. Michael turned to Hayes, who was being restrained by officers. You kidnapped my daughter without authorization outside the official operation. Hayes met his gaze without flinching. I needed your genuine reaction. Needed Wilkins to believe you were desperate out of options. It was the only way to draw him out. The cold calculation behind Hayes' actions reignited Michael's rage. You used her as bait. Used me. For justice, Hayes insisted. For David. That wasn't your call to make, Michael replied, his voice deadly quiet. And it's not justice when innocent people suffer for your crusade. As the state police led the prisoners away, Michael turned to Emily and Tommy. Is Sarah really safe? Emily nodded. She's at the station with Peterson. He picked her up personally after Hayes' men released her. Relief washed over Michael, momentarily overwhelming the anger and betrayal. Sarah was safe. After everything that had happened, his daughter was safe. The evidence? He asked, nodding toward the vault. Secure, Tommy confirmed. Enough to bring down not just Wilkins, but the entire circle. Judge Freeman, several politicians, even directors within the Bureau itself. It's over then, Michael said, more to himself than the others. After 15 years. But even as he spoke the words, he knew it wasn't entirely true. The conspiracy might be exposed, the conspirators arrested, but the damage they had caused, the lives destroyed, the trust shattered, could never be fully repaired. As they emerged from the crypt into the cool nighty air, Michael saw the cemetery had been transformed into a law enforcement staging area. State police vehicles, FBI agents, even military personnel secured the perimeter. Among them stood Agent Peterson, and beside him, looking confused and frightened but unharmed, was Sarah. Dad, she called, breaking away from Peterson and running toward Michael. He caught her in his arms, holding her tightly, 15 years of regret and missed opportunities crystallizing in this single moment of connection. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. For what? Sarah asked, pulling back to look at him. For everything, Michael replied. For not being there. For letting the job come first. For failing to protect you. Sarah's expression softened. Mom used to say you were protecting everyone else's families at the expense of your own. The observation so characteristic of Diane brought a sad smile to Michael's face. She was right. She usually was. As the night wore on, Michael gave his statement to Peterson and the Attorney General's representatives. He detailed everything: the warehouse incident, Hayes' murder, Diane's investigation, the conspiracy that had spanned 15 years and claimed countless lives. By dawn, the initial arrests had been made. Wilkins, Hayes, Kozlov, Barnes, and Catherine Voss were all in custody. Judge Freeman had been taken into custody at his home in Washington. The circle was broken, its members facing justice at last. Michael sat on a bench outside the cemetery watching the sunrise through the trees. Emily approached, sitting beside him in companionable silence. What happens now? She finally asked. Now, Michael considered the question. Now we rebuild. Try to make sense of the truth after 15 years of lies. Will you stay in Riverwood? He hadn't thought that far ahead. With the circle exposed, the resort development would likely be abandoned. The town would continue its slow decline, absent the promised economic revitalization. I don't know, he admitted. Too many ghosts here. Too many memories. Emily nodded in understanding. Robert's condition has stabilized. The doctors are optimistic about a full recovery. Good, Michael said sincerely. That's good. They lapsed into silence again, the weight of everything that had happened settling around them like the morning mist. Your father, Michael finally said. All these years I thought he was dead. Thought he might have been killed because of what he witnessed. He nearly was, Emily replied. Wilkins' men shot him during the warehouse raid, left him for dead. But he survived, made it to the river, eventually fled the country. He's been in hiding ever since, gathering evidence against the circle. Until Hayes found him. Emily nodded. Richard Hayes spent years tracking down everyone connected to his brother's case. When he found my father in Thailand, he convinced him to come forward to be the key witness in exposing the circle. Why didn't you tell me? Michael asked. When you first came to Riverwood, I wasn't sure I could trust you, Emily admitted. We didn't know how deep the circle's influence went, who might be compromised. I needed to assess you first to be certain. And when did you decide I was trustworthy? Emily smiled slightly. When you dug up your ex-wife's grave based on a hunch. That level of commitment is hard to fake. Despite everything, Michael found himself laughing, a short, surprised sound that felt foreign after so many days of tension and fear. Sarah approached, having finished giving her statement to the authorities. She sat on Michael's other side, her presence a reminder of everything he had nearly lost. The FBI agent Peterson said I might need to testify, she said, about the kidnapping. Only if you feel up to it, Michael assured her. Your safety comes first. Sarah nodded, then asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. Dad, what happened 15 years ago? Why did all this happen? Michael exchanged a glance with Emily, then sighed. It's a long story, one I should have told you years ago. "I've got time," Sarah replied quietly. So as the sun rose fully over Riverwood, casting long shadows across the cemetery, where so many secrets had been buried and unearthed, Michael began the story, the full, unvarnished truth about that night 15 years ago, about the choices he had made, the consequences that had followed, and the long, winding path that had led them all to this moment of reckoning. It wasn't a story with a happy ending. Too much had been lost, too many lives destroyed, but it was a story of truth, finally emerging from darkness of justice, delayed but not denied, of secrets revealed and burdens lifted. And perhaps Michael thought, as he looked at his daughter's face, her expression so reminiscent of Diane's. Perhaps it was also a story of second chances, of the possibility that even after 15 years of darkness, light could still find a way through.